So if we want to really now deal with our insurance systems, again the whole question is, and look at how we can actually finance healthcare through multiple channels, but which have to be integrated. A single payer system is obviously absolutely essential. International experience shows that the single payer system has approximately 10% of the administrative costs compared to 25% administrative costs of fragmented commercial insurance. A single payer system also offers a leverage to bargain with vendors and healthcare providers, which is very important. Then you can cut costs, cap costs. This ensures that finance is effective in targeting the needed services and efficient in purchasing value for money. So we are really talking about, and also the other reason why we are talking about universal healthcare is, as Rama Baru's paper in the September issue of EPW shows, it is not just the very poor who are suffering the consequence of healthcare costs. The people who are just above the poverty line are also very vulnerable. And if you take the poor and the vulnerable, they add to 75% of India's population. There's a gradient of risk as the incomes rise. It doesn't mean that just across an arbitrary threshold, suddenly there is full protection. So if you want to ensure that people are not being pushed back under the poverty line, and that healthcare costs are actually being contained all across the line, and there is a very steep relationship there, we need to ensure that there is universalism. So the case for universalism is very clear. The fact that targeted approaches will not work is also fairly clear. The question is, how do we mobilize the resources? Now there we need to really get very specific. First, we probably need to step up the level of public spending on health to a minimum of 3% of the GDP by 2020. There are at least 3 reasons for it. If you can do it by 2040, nothing like it, but let's at least look at 2030. One is, of course, India's current level of public spending on health is very low. Even if you add some of the social sector investments to that 0.9 or 1%, the entire spending on health and allied areas goes up to only 1.2%. The estimates reveal that India would need to spend around 2.2% of GDP on primary care in order to provide a minimum package of healthcare services to its citizens. If primary care is assumed to be 70% of total healthcare expenditure, then the total quantum of resources required would work out to 3.14% of GDP. This is also consistent with the World Health Organization recommendation that $34 per capita is required to meet basic healthcare needs annually. With the Indian per capita GDP of being around $1,000, this translates to 3.4% of the GDP. So even that way you actually arrive almost at the same figure, even if you move from the WHO figure. So the question is, if we actually focus on primary healthcare particularly, and some elements of secondary care, like for example, protection of pregnant mothers and so on, and say that 75% of all health budget would be ring-fenced for primary and selected secondary care expenditure, we can achieve most of the objectives that we want in terms of health coverage, and that would mean public financing going up to 3% or 3.2%. Therefore, as a first step, the subgroup that we constituted recommended that the proportion of public spending be increased to 40% of the total entirely through general tax-based financing, and increasing public spending from 1 to 3% of GDP would reduce the proportion of out-of-pocket spending to 40%. Then use general taxation as the principal source for mobilizing resources. This has been the general consensus that's coming forth from most sources. Abolish user fee, including charges by the Rogi Kalyan Samiti. So user fee in any form. Discontinue demand-side financing efforts at secondary care level, because RSBY is an example where secondary care has what are called high-frequency illnesses, therefore high utilization rate, and therefore actually is financially becoming non-viable for RSBY to succeed. At the same time, there is so much of moral hazard that's being involved in all these insurance schemes, whether in RSBY or in terms of particularly Arogyasri, unnecessary procedures being performed, false billings being submitted, all of that is happening substantially. So we need to take care of those as well. Uh, Obviously, we need to prioritize expenditure on primary and secondary care. We need a single integrated national pool. We need uniform national standards for purchase. We need multiple competing purchasing agents, but anyway, we need actually to ensure that the state controls the entire purchase standards and costs. Now, I've spent a fair amount of time on financing, but clearly this financing has to be spent on something. This financing obviously needs to be spent on human resources, strengthening the public sector, on human resources and infrastructure, particularly in the public sector. Now we have a huge human resource crisis. Our numbers of doctors, nurses, community health workers, paramedics are all in short supply, but particularly nurses and community health workers, and we need to quickly gear up. We need to get more of mid-level health workers trained, and I particularly welcome the recent introduction of the 3.5-year MBBS course, the Bachelor of Rural Health Sciences. How it is going to be actually implemented is a different issue. We'll have to take care in that. But mid-level health workers are needed, whatever you call them. You need more specialist nurses also to graduate into mid-level health worker category. We need task shifting from specialist physicians to non-specialist physicians, from physicians to nurses, nurses to community health workers. And unless we actually expand the pool of human resources, broadening the base of the pyramid, we are not going to really succeed in providing the adequate human resources. We need to strengthen infrastructure, public sector infrastructure. The story of independent India over the last 60 years has been characterized by a progressive deterioration of public services. I was born in the 50s. In the 50s, it was not a shame to attend a government school. In the 60s, it was not a problem to drink water from a public tap. When we traveled in trains, we could walk out with our canteen and drink water from a public tap. In the 70s, it was not a matter of doubt and uncertainty to go to a government hospital. The situation in 2010 is very different. The quality of our public services have deteriorated, and we have allowed them to deteriorate. And therefore, it's time that we strengthen our public services, especially in health, in terms of infrastructure. We need to develop policies on drugs, vaccines, and devices. We need to protect our generic drug industry. India has been described as the pharmacy of the world, but we now see our pharmaceutical companies being rapidly acquired by multinational companies. There is the danger that their own product portfolio may change, and also there is also some danger which we need to guard against, that what has been conferred upon us by Doha in terms of the right to undertake compulsory licensing may be stolen stealthily through free trade agreements, which may actually deprive us of some of that element. So we need to protect our pharmaceutical industry, especially the generic drug industry, but even there we need cost containment. So we need drug procurement processes like that in Tamil Nadu, and we need ensuring that even technical procedures are also cost capped. Vaccines, again, we have learned the lesson of having shut down our public sector vaccine companies and how we are at the mercy of some of the international companies. So we need to evolve a policy of self-reliance and cost containment, along with quality control, of course, for drugs, vaccines, and devices. Then comes the big question, like that song in Sound of Music. What do you do with a problem like Maria? What do you do with a problem like the private sector? So the private sector, I would look at it in multiple formats. There is a not-for-profit private sector, which is doing good work. There is a for-profit private sector, which can still be effectively integrated with a suitable regulatory system. And there is a for-profiteering private sector, which needs to be controlled and curbed. Now, how do we actually ensure that the private sector becomes effectively a partner in this whole effort and is integrated into the universal healthcare framework? We need a robust regulatory system for cost, for quality, for standards, and incorporating patient rights. And that is something that we need to develop and bring them in. What do we do with the individual private practitioner? Do we register them under some national health service scheme? Is it too utopian to consider that? All those are questions that we need to grapple with. But at least the organized private sector is something that we need to definitely integrate through a robust regulatory framework. Now, in terms of community mobilization and social determinants, I'll not say much more. But obviously, when we're talking about primary health care, we cannot only talk about rural primary health care. We now have to talk about urban primary health care as well.